everyone. We are live. Welcome to the Helping Friendly podcast. I'm Megan and I'm here with RJ. Hey, RJ.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm excited to do this episode. It's gonna be a lot of fun. For those people who were here last maybe last week or 2 weeks ago when my kids kept coming in, I tried to avoid that this time by putting them on the couch with their headphones on. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
all
if
got
they're
to
trying to come
troubleshoot.
in, just let them in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited about today's show too. We have an amazing guest who I was telling everyone before the show, I was telling RJ and our guest this, that until he actually showed up on the stream, I actually wasn't sure if I was being like catfishing because I catfished. Is that how you say it? Catfished? I don't know. But I didn't know if I was being tricked because he was so friendly and so awesome about coming on when I asked him. And I am thrilled that we have Carl Gerhard today on the show to talk about October 14th, 1994, a show that he played in the encore of. So I'm super excited about getting into this.
Yeah, I'm excited too. We gotta do it. I guess there's not much else to say. I hope everyone's enjoying the season of Undermine. I hope everyone's doing okay. Yeah, I don't have a lot of administrative duties today, so
Well, the Undermine season has been so good. You must be so tired doing it because it's a lot to keep up with even as a listener, but it is so fun. It's been making my like walk to work every day so pleasant, just like hearing all these awesome stories and building up to what is my favorite tour, which is fall 97. So, it's been awesome to listen to.
thanks. It's going to be really. We're trying to keep it to 30 minutes an episode to make it a little bit easier for people. And yeah, it's fun. And Tom has been doing the most work in terms of interviewing because Benji and I have traded off, co-hosting, but doing all the prep and listening. I have to listen to a lot of fish shows, and it's hard. It's very hard.
It's a hard job, RJ.
It's a
Somebody's
hard
got to
job.
do it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, let's bring on our guest. Oh, and we should also, before we do that, remind everyone to subscribe to Osiris Media on Apple to get premium episodes and also support what we do. We love it when you show us that you support us by being in the chat and by sharing the pod and giving us reviews. And this is a great way for you to support us and all that we're doing here. So check that out. And I think all the fish nerds that listen to this podcast know who Carl Gerhard is. But as a little reminder, he is a childhood friend of Paige. He started guesting with Fish in 1998, and he is the most guested person with Fish. So he's been on the most times with the band, 31 times, which is just crazy. Crazy. He sat in with side projects too, like Tab and Vita Blue. And the last time he sat in with Fish was in 2012. So I'm voting to have him back because that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Let's bring him on though. Hi, Carl.
Hey, Megan. Hey, RJ.
Hey, Carl. Nice to see you again. I think you joined us. We talked about Hampton 98, I think, and we talked about we've talked about several shows with you and a lot of stuff.
Right.
So thank you for coming back to talk about this 94 show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is so generous of you. We're really excited that you're here. It's also just fun to listen back to 1994 Fish. This for me was when I started seeing the band. And so anytime I listen to Fish from this year, it's just brings me back to that time. But thinking about where they were in 1994 is pretty cool because they started playing in New Orleans, 4 years before at Tipitina's, and they played there for 3 years. And then they moved to a state theater in 1993. So the same year, they're playing the same market, but in bigger venues, which is just showing how much they're growing in like the early 90s. And by 94, they're at this university at Tulane playing the show. So it's pretty incredible seeing them kind of stretch so much during this time.
I mean, pretty amazing. Carl, I guess we got to ask you well, first of all, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
What were you doing in New Orleans in October of 94?
First, I'm just going to do just a correction really quick.
Yeah, please.
I started playing with them in 1988, Megan, a long time ago.
Oh, did I say 98? I'm sorry.
You
I
said
meant
98,
88.
but that's
I'm
okay.
so sorry.
You're just dating me. That's all right.
Read my notes wrong. Sorry. Thank you for correcting me.
But anyway, I was at the time from I think the beginning of 92 to 94, I was living in New Orleans. I was in the Navy band in New Orleans at the time. So that's what I was doing when they came through town. And I played with them at Tipitina's, also at that State Palace Theater, well, when they came through. So I think that the third time might have been at the in Tulane,
Mhm.
the
Did they
show we're talking
also
about.
did they also did you play New Orleans when you were with the when they were touring with the horns, with the Giant Country Horns too? Did you guys
No,
play New Orleans then?
no, we didn't make it to New Orleans. Actually, the Giant Country Horn Tour basically went as far south as we could go because I had to get back to the Navy band, right? So uh, Trey had said, "Hey, how much time can you get off? This is the horn tour in '91," and basically at the time my boss gave me like I think 30 days off or something like that, vacation time that I had. But anyway, I still was able to leave the Navy band for that much time, and they just kind of plotted a tour from Burlington, and I think our last gig was in Atlanta with Aquarium Rescue Unit. But if I could have stayed longer, the tour probably the horns would have gone a little bit longer because the band continued on, and they went back to Amy's farm. So that was a great gig that unfortunately I missed.
I mean, still to get a month off and to do that tour with them, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely life changing for me. It was an incredible experience, but just staying connected with the band after that, and of course my friendship with Paige is, that was key. And then after the horn tour, just being able to sit in and doing other things and other projects was great.
Yeah, and so how did you end up playing this show?
Um, well, I had played. I had to actually go back and look at the the history also because I forgot when
Yeah.
we had done. I think we did when Hoist came out, right? We went up to the Flynn Theater in Vermont, and it was kind of like a release concert, I suppose, because when they did the album, they had horns on the album. They used the Tower of Power horns from the West Coast when they did the album. So they came to the East Coast, and we ended up doing. It was kind of a surprise thing, I suppose. But we had more than the Giant Country Horns. We had extra guys in that one at the Flynn, and then uh, it went over really well. So they were at the Beacon Theater a little while later, and we ended up. They called up and said, "Hey, can you come up?" I was in New Orleans. They flew me up to play the Beacon with the Giant Country Horns, and then I think chronologically, I think that's when they came back down to New Orleans and contacted me, and they had been in contact with Michael Ray, who's also on this concert that we're talking about, right? And I've known Michael Ray not on stage together, but just knew his playing, and he was with Kool and the Gang and Sun Ra Orchestra, and he had his own group called Cosmic Crew. So anyway, Michael is a New Orleans staple, right, as far as trumpet players, and he's an incredible player. So that gig that we played, the one we're talking about, is the first time I met him in person. So it was just incredible. So anyway, somebody from management called me and said, "Hey, we're coming back down to New Orleans, and come on out." So I've been to a lot of shows where I haven't played, but it was, always bring your horn, right? That's what Trey would say, just bring your horn, we'll see what goes on. And then, but the thing with Michael though, that was just kind of, it was a bit spontaneous, but knowing the guys in the band, I think there was a little bit of, strategy there because we ended up playing at the end there, and I thought it went pretty well. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. Did you rehearse it all before? Oh, sorry, RJ.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
No rehearsals. They just said,
Wow.
"Hey, you know this song, right? Yamar." I'm like, "Yeah, I know it, but never played it with them. But let's
Yeah.
do it." And then, if you listen to the recording, you could definitely tell there's two different trumpet players up there, But because Michael, he screams to the high heavens, he's got that thing going, and we just had such a great time. The visual, too bad there's not a video of it because he's quite a showman out there.
Carl, I got to go back. Well, first of all, the Flynn show that you guys did, that was April 4th, 1994. And that's where
Yep.
all those songs were debuted. Son of a
Yes.
Mule, Down with Disease, If I Could. I mean,
Julius,
so many.
right?
Julius,
Yeah,
Wolfman's.
Wolfman's,
I mean,
yeah.
That's really cool. Will you tell? I think you've told this story either on to me and Tom, or maybe on Undermine. But the Beacon show that was in May of '94, or sorry, later that it was like a week later. Didn't
Yeah.
you have some trouble getting into the venue?
Oh yeah. So, well, they booked me a flight. This is all before the internet, right? So I get the phone call. Can you get here earlier because we need to do sound check. So we had to rehearse because we had multiple horns on that gig. So at sound check is when we were going to go over that new, the material. So I ended up getting in. I forget where I flew into, a LaGuardia or something, and it was just like a movie because I knew I could have been late. So I just told the cab, I said, please get me to the Beacon Theater as quickly as possible. And we just flew through, I think, Central Park or something. It just forever. It seemed like it took forever, but he dumped me outside. And at the time, in front of the theater, there were tons of Fish fans just hanging out, as they do, right? So I couldn't get in the backstage door. Like, I was pounding on the door, and I could hear like people warming up inside. So I ended up going to the front of the venue, and this whole thing was a surprise, by the way. The fans weren't supposed to know that we were, there was going to be horns that day, right? So anyway, it's just me, a small little suitcase, and my horn on my back, So I go to the front of the venue, and they're looking at me like, well, you can't get in. Like, I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be playing in the band, So we'll send somebody to the back, and I guess some of the fans saw that I was there. So maybe some word got out that, I was spotted or whatever, but I literally made it with 2 minutes to spare, before we started rehearsing. So that the gig that almost never happened for me.
It's amazing.
Oh my God. And now with Twitter, that would have like totally blown up. If they had Twitter back then, your picture would have been all over the internet.
Oh
Everybody
God,
would have been
yeah.
calling it.
Crazy.
Yeah, you couldn't have pulled that off that.
Yeah. Oh man. Megan, do you want to go through the first set, or what else do we need to do to set this up?
Yeah, I think so. Why don't we talk about, I'll read out the first set, and then we can talk about kind of what stands out as the highlights. And I don't know if you have thoughts, Carl, like listening back and just, what you remember and where you were. I'd love to hear about where you were during the show and everything. The first set reads, buried alive, into sample in a jar, into divided sky, the horse, into silent in the morning, punch you in the eye, bathtub gin, sweet Adeline, rift, Colonel Forbin's ascent, into fly, famous mockingbird, Julius. What a set list. Wow.
Carl, where were you during this set? Like, would you typically be just like in the green room, or would you be watching from the audience, or how do you take in these shows where you might play eventually?
I think this particular show is like, it was just Michael and I at that point backstage because we were going to go on later. So I was just rattling him with questions about playing with Kool and the gang, and I was a little starstruck because he's such a great musician, trumpet player. So, and he was just so humble. I can't tell you. And we're good friends today because of that first meeting. I tell you what, because I played with him.
That's awesome.
With a bunch of times since that first meeting. But so Michael and I were just hanging out, and I don't think he really had listened to Fish, because he had his own thing going. But he was, obviously well known with the guys in the band. So he and I hung out in the green room, and then I remember they played Buried Alive to start the show, right? What I remember is, I remember the crowds on the horn tour. It was great, and all playing the Beacon, and it's just the vibe, and you could just feel the whole room, and the floor was shaking. So and that was a big venue, if I remember. So we pretty much watched most of it from the side, but just to see the audience reaction when we started playing Buried Alive, it's like, where are they going to go from here? So it was really, really good.
Yeah, that's probably the best opener that you can get. It's just so energetic and just like launches you right into the show. You're like, yeah, you're at a Fish show right now. This is happening. I love it.
Yep.
RJ, what stood out for you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
I was going to say Buried Alive. That's another tune. Like they play tunes that we had played with the Giant Country Horns as an addition, during the 91 tour. So Buried Alive was the tune that we played. And, I'm just sitting and, just remembering what that felt like. But to watch them do it without us, it was just, it was really just incredible to hear,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Had you seen them in a while? When was the last time you saw Fish at this point? Do you remember?
You mean for me recently?
Yeah, like no, like then, had you seen them since you played with them in 91, or I guess you played with them at the Flynn and at the
Yeah.
Beacon. So you've been kind of seeing.
I think I sat in 92. They came to Virginia. I was going to music school down there in 92. I think we played at Trax. So I did some, one-off sit-ins, and so not too much time went by. But remember, like 94 was kind of a busy year for me, at least with sitting in, like because of the Flynn and we went. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know which came first. It was either the Flynn came first, and then New Orleans. But they flew Michael and I out to California, and we played. Dave Matthews Band opened up for us out there at San Jose. I have to remember what show that was, but that was really neat. I think that was after the New Orleans collaboration with Michael. So, and that was cool too, because he and I were on the same flight, from New Orleans to California.
That's
So
great.
we really got to know each other pretty well. And then the music was phenomenal if you get a chance to listen to those shows that we did out in California. It was awesome. So I did get it. I definitely got a great opportunities in 94, especially to play with the band in different venues. So, yeah.
That's really
That's
cool.
so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this show is interesting because they were, we just mentioned it's sort of like a Hoist album tour, but they didn't really do that, although they did play a bunch of 93 and 94 songs at this show. But like the Bathtub Gin in this is interesting because I'm sure you saw this as they evolved, Carl, that the improv was really getting out there. And this, the Bathtub Gin was, it was really much more. I don't really remember having the tape of this show, but 12 or 13 minutes, like really kind of pushes the boundaries. And they were just kind of starting to do that at this time. And I don't know, it's a reminder that some of these shows that we don't go back to that often, like they have these little gems in them of improv and you're sitting at the end that I don't know, it was changing so fast, their musical style.
Yeah, and you know what about that too is like you never felt that the audience was not with them. Do you know? It just it seemed to be a very collective vibe. I don't really know how to better say that. So it was like accepted, and but it was great. It was great to watch and listen to for sure.
I saw them exactly. Oh, sorry, RJ. I was just gonna say I saw them exactly a month later, and what stands out to me so much is just their energy and their connection with the audience. Like you were saying, they were right there with them. Like we were all just on this journey together, and anything they did, people were just eating it up. And I think it was so cool to watch a band grow and change so much the size of the venues and the amount of people at the shows, but also just retain who they were. And that was what's super exciting and stood out to me.
Yeah, were you listening to them at all, Carl, this time? Like, would you have known this? Like, because I feel like walking into a show like this and seeing some of this improv might have been a little bit surprising based on having seen them and played with them years and years before.
Yeah, that's funny you say that because you're not going to listen to them on the radio, right? There was no Sirius XM jam on Fish radio, so you couldn't. I forget what was the was it the Doniak Schweiss, if you're familiar with the newsletter that they used to send out. So like then there was tape trading, which I wasn't doing at the time. So it was there were new things that came out, but I was I was pretty hip to the new stuff they were sending out, because they would send me things, and
Nice.
which I really appreciated. And
Awesome.
yeah, so it's very fresh, right? You go to a new show, you hear new songs, and yeah, that was the really cool thing about way back when, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree, RJ. This bathtub gin is like super exploratory and like trancy almost. They get to like a really cool space. It's definitely different. Like it's not as rhythmic as, a lot of their jamming, but I think as they're heading into November, their sound starts to get a lot more psychedelic and they take a lot, bigger jams and take a lot more time kind of breathing in these jams in a way that's like very different from what they had been doing. It's pretty exciting. It's also just fun to hear too the like audience reaction to the Rift songs. And I mean, people go crazy when they play Rift. I mean, maybe it's because it's the audience recording, you can really hear it. But to me, that was the album that got me into Fish. And everybody I knew who liked Fish was listening to Rift in 94. Like that's just, even though Hoist came out, it was like people were like really immersed in the Rift stuff. So it's cool to hear them play that and people get so into it. And then you have a really, really fun narration in Colonel Forbin's, which is just super cool. And I think a really inspired Mockingbird. I think Trey sounds amazing. And I was also really sad that you didn't come out for the Julius, because that would have been amazing.
Oh, I think somebody was holding me backstage. We had to get the mouthpiece and the horn just ready to go, but
Yeah,
because I mean, that arrangement, I mean, those arrangements on Hoist for the horns, that's Tower of Power, is like the pinnacle horn section, right? So in musician talk, those arrangements really lay so well for the instrumentation, right? They just fit so well. It's not awkward. It's it just lays so nice, like it was just incredible. So to be able to play those same arrangements, I think when we did at the Flynn, whatever was on the album, we were playing those arrangements. So that was really cool.
That's so cool. So you're getting charts beforehand, like of
For
music, or just kind of learning it for the Juliet, for all of that new stuff?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I mean, it made it so much easier when we did the horn tour. It was I need to do a shout out to Dave Grippo and Russ Remington, because those two guys are my brothers and we go back so far, and just the most incredible musicians. My playing, it's just like playing with really good athletes on a team. They just make you better. So that whole time with them was just, I just grew as a musician myself. Obviously playing with Fish, but playing with those horn players are just great. So, but when we were on the horn tour in '91, basically Trey sent us Split Open and Melt, a couple others, and then we pretty much made up a bunch of stuff, right? And then we wrote it down, and that's what became the horn, arrangements for that tour. Like Susie Greenberg, came up with it. Now these names, they escape me. The Cavern, that just that was the Cavern stuff that I did. That was just, then it just played this one line. It's like, oh, that fits. Let's keep doing this, right? So stuff like that. It just kind of, Golgi apparatus, right? Stuff like that. That just we came up with that one on a sound check on the horn tours. Like, hey, let's put horns to this, because we played a lot of repeats during that '91 tour just because we kind of had to, but we learned stuff as we went along. That being said, we kind of wrote our own parts. So another regret is when I left after the Atlanta show, I left my pink tuxedo that we had to wear every night. I left that in Fishman's van. I left the music there, and I had to make a flight. I mean, I should have saved all this stuff, right?
Right.
Yes.
Every show, Trey would take notebook paper and he'd write the set list for everybody, and he'd cut it up in thirds for the horns, and he'd write it 3 times, and I just put it in my case, and I had all like 14 shows of set lists. And what happened to them? I don't know. I those are other things I wish I had held on to, but we never thought it was going to be, I mean, I always knew they're an incredible band. They're so special, but it's just funny to look at folks now and know that they kind of dig into the stuff that we did way back when. So it's neat.
Oh yeah. And then when
Yeah.
you're in the moment and you're young and you're performing, it's hard to imagine kind of the lasting importance of what you're doing, or, how people will look back on something. And plus you're busy. I mean, I can't imagine learning and making up parts to songs like Gogi Apparatus and, Split Open and Melt, such complicated compositions. Like that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well,
That's, that's
David
amazing.
Bowie. I mean, all this. It was the thing was, Megan. It was inspiring. It was like stuff that came out, stuff that we wrote down. It was like a 24/7 vibe the whole time. I mean, we weren't traveling like they are now, right? Like in the custom of what they're traveling, the way they're traveling is we were in vans, we were in hotel rooms together. We spent pretty much every waking moment together, the band, the crew, and the horns. So it was just, and when it came to playing, it was like, okay, well, let's just do this, and great stuff came from it.
Can't believe
So
how many songs you guys learned. I mean, those 91 shows, like, I mean, it's the whole show, right? So it's not just sitting in for a set or a few songs. I mean,
Yeah.
dozens, right? Even though there were repeats, like you said, you guys kept working more in. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I mean, I guess that's your job as a musician, but it still seems overwhelming given the complexity of some of these songs, right? There's like
Yeah.
foam or something that has like
Yeah.
4 different
I mean,
parts. And like, how do
seriously,
you
it's so
even
complicated.
Oh
do that?
my God. Thank God I didn't play saxophone on foam, because those guys they absolutely crushed it. And I was able to just kind of watch for a little while, and play my part. But very, very, very intricate, and they're just phenomenal musicians. They were able to handle it. They were playing guitar parts on saxophone, that's pretty cool.
That is
Yeah.
so cool. I also read I think it was an interview that you did with like the Mockingbird Foundation a long time ago, but you were talking about how Trey forced you to wear the tuxedos even in the heat, which is
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
funny because the band has never seemed like a band that really cared about what they look like. And there's a lot of evidence of that out there. But here they are forcing you to wear the tuxedos. I find that hilarious and very
Yeah.
off brand.
I think it might have been Arrowhead Ranch or one of the shows. It was really hot, and it was a daytime gig. I think it was Arrowhead Ranch, and we played 2 dates there. And the second, Grippo and Remington, they're like, hey, somebody's got to ask Trey if we can just wear shorts, So like, okay, I'll do it, So I went up and I said, hey, Trey, it's really hot, man. Can we wear shorts, And Trey is just so lovable. He just looks at me and goes, he's like, Gears, what's your name, man? What's your name? I'm like, what? And he goes, you guys are the Giant Country Horns, man. You got to look like the Giant Country Horns. So that was it. I'm like, hey, man, I was in the Navy, right? You got it, boss.
Yeah.
We got, so I went back but we wore those pink tuxedo jackets, Megan, for 14 straight shows. So so they kind of stood up on their own when I left them in Fishman's van,
There's
But
a
it was
reason you didn't want to take it with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Incredible. Well, Megan, I guess, can we jump to the second set?
Yeah, let's do it. So the second set is a great opening with The Curtain into Tweezer into Lifeboy. I'll take that opening any day. Gaiuti, Chalk Dust Torture, Nellie Kane, The Beaumont Rag, Foreplay, Long Time, Squirming Coil, Tweezer Reprise, and then the encore with Yamar and Cavern with Carl and Michael.
Amazing. I think you're right. The tweezer is, I mean, again, I sort of back to what I was saying earlier, this 94 era, there's a lot of pushing the boundaries. I think this is, for Undermine this season, we're doing some looking at across the 90s, and the tweezers from like the late 94, early 95, this one, it's not that long and it's not that, much like, it's not a version people talk about, but 13 or 14 minutes, they really get out there. It's, I think, unusually kind of exploratory for this month, but over the next month or two after this, it like takes on a whole different life. So it's sort of interesting to like see this transformation. And then Lifeboy, man, what a perfect a perfect song to land into after anything really. That's a really great opening.
Yeah, after anything, and especially after like a super weird tweezer that I don't know, this is not my favorite kind of tweezer, but you can hear them taking risks, right? Like stretching out and trying things. And it sounds a little disjointed to me at times, but I think it's like that bridge to the 95 jams that we're going to get. And I think it's cool. I mean, you're also got the banger tweezer later. Like they're leading up to some like monster tweezers. And it's exciting to hear them kind of like pushing the boundary of that. They're definitely not rhythmic and they can be a little challenging to listen to, but if you like weird stuff, then this is your jam.
And Carl, at this point in the second set, do you know you're coming on the encore? Do you know like what's happening?
Yeah, but yes, we knew what we were going to play,
Okay.
but just didn't know when it was going to happen, right?
Got
Trey
it.
didn't say, like Trey didn't give me the set list like he used to, right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hey, you
Different
guys just,
times.
he's like, you guys just hang out and we'll call you on. It's one of those things. So we had never, we didn't rehearse it in sound check. We just got out there and Michael had this big shaker thing. So he played that and he's screaming these high notes and I'm trying to do my thing and and just the reaction of the audience and the band, obviously it was really a lot of fun.
That is so awesome. I can't even imagine because Michael Ray was also like he danced in Sun Ra too, right? So he was like, was he really physical? And
Yeah. I mean, I think the last time I played with them was with Adam and Matthew Chase in Jazz's Fish that they do. And I think he's got like 10 years on me and I'm not young, but anyway, he's just incredible shape. And yeah, that's part of his shtick. He gets out there and just gets the crowd into it. He's very, very physical. So, and playing with Kool and the Gang, that whole show is, horn movements, right? Not only playing great, but you got to do the show. So, yeah.
that's so awesome. I'd love to hear about that too. Gonna have to find out more about that too. But I think this set is awesome. I mean, the Chalk Dust Torture absolutely rips. And then they've got these little like mini acoustic sets that they're doing, they start doing sometimes. And it's really cool. They played some of these songs not very often. That Beaumont Rag, they only played it 4 times this fall. But I think something that really stands out is this Long Time Foreplay. I mean, how amazing to take like this Boston arena rock song and turn it into this acoustic bluegrass tune. I mean, it's so cool. I just thought it was really awesome.
Yeah, and like just the juxtaposition of the acoustic kind of segment in the second set, and then the horns coming in the encore, and then with like this weird tweezer and the gaiuti, which is this kind of new at the time, complicated arrangement. I mean, there's like it's just such a diverse set of sounds. And I think that you mentioned that the Boston cover, of course, they started playing it, I think like 4 shows before this. So they hadn't played it very often. And this was just this acoustic 94 stuff really brought out some really cool arrangements. Yeah, really, it was an interesting set for sure. And then they kind of like, yeah, and I think this Stan the man who's watching on YouTube, the Foreplay long time precursor to the Boston Cream Baker's Dozen for sure. It's got to be, right? I think they'd like
it has to be
wanting to do that for a long time.
They played that Long Time Foreplay a bunch that fall in 94, and then they played it again 99 at Great Woods, but it was electric. And then I guess they played it post hiatus, the first show back in 12/31/02. Like they played the Boston version as pre-show music. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, it definitely seems like it was a lead up. They've been thinking about that for a while, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and then a gorgeous Squirming Coil, so beautiful. Paige sounds incredible. And then the encore. And I just have to say the interplay between the horns and Paige at the end of Yamar is just thrilling to listen to. It's just so you're like talking to each other in this way that's just sounds so organic, and it adds so much, I think. And the cavern is like, it already has kind of like a debaucherous feeling cavern, but when you add the horns, it's like really, whenever I hear Cavern, like I can't dance hard enough. Like the music, it just like I can't seem to like dance hard enough because it just like hits so good, whatever Fishman's playing. And the horns made it like even more. Like Cavern is just like the perfect horn song. So good.
Yeah, I love that song. I love playing it. And they do different tempos throughout the years, right? It could one version could be quicker and one could be slower, but you're right about that drum intro. Nobody has to tell you what song it is when you hear him play, right? That it's coming. So
Exactly. It just hits so good. So how does
yeah.
Trey do this? They go backstage before the encore and then he's like, we're gonna go on. How does he kind of tell you guys what you're gonna play? Or he's
I
like, you're gonna
think
play Yamar, and then did he tell you guys like
yeah,
we're
I
gonna do
think
this then?
yeah, he talked about it. I think he talked about it before the show. It wasn't
Mhm.
like, between, goes off the stage after the last song before the encore and says, "Oh, by the way, we're going to do this." I think we already talked about it. And Cavern, I've already played a bunch of times with them. So I think maybe Michael and I just fooled around with Cavern a little bit. I kind of gave him the form of it, and said, "Hey, they're going to do
Mhm.
this," and then I do the answer stuff. Trey would sing, and then I'd answer. I play in the fills, right? So that was
Yes.
kind of my thing. So I did most of the fills on that. And then whenever you hear this like high, dog whistle trumpet, that's Michael. So but he's got great ears, so he just fit right in. You know. And then when they held the last note out, which is longer than normal, because horn players you
Mhm.
can only breathe so long, right? Unless you can circular breathe, which I can't do. But it's like when are we going to end? So he just kept going and just took another breath and kept playing. So
That's so. And now I want to listen to it, knowing that
Yeah.
yeah,
Michael, and listen back again because it's really
yeah,
cool to
yeah,
think about kind of isolating what you're playing and what Michael's playing. That's really
right.
cool.
Yeah, you should definitely be able to hear the difference between my sound and his sound, right? Part of it, like I'm thinking, oh wow, it sounded really good, but it was actually Michael, just
No.
so. But yeah, with God, you know what? The other thing with him talking about being organic, um, excuse me, talking about being organic, like that's the way we played this show, right? We didn't really know what was going to happen, and that's what happens usually when you're on stage with them. That's the whole beauty of it, is kind of unscripted. So you just go with visuals, right? Because Trey will kind of give you a look or a smile or something that it just triggers you, where you don't need anything more than that, right? You don't need him to mouth the words, or it just kind of happens. And
Hmm.
and if
A
it's not
smile from
exact.
Trey is like all I would need to. So I feel you.
That's so mega. Yeah, that's the way I've been feeling for over 30 years with these guys. So yeah, yeah, it's really cool.
Sorry
That's
I interrupted
amazing.
you.
No, not at all. It's good.
Well, what one Mark who's watching on YouTube, sorry, I was gonna
Yeah.
says the cavern beat is a little weird. It has a bit of a swingy offbeat. And Fishman is so unique. How, does that just happen as you're playing? Like you don't say like, okay, we're gonna like you're just following the band playing, right? But it kind of ends up being probably a little bit different from standard versions because of you guys being out there.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of truth to that. Definitely, once he starts the groove, I guess, the beat, it just settles right in. It's not like
Hmm.
you're guessing where to come in, Um, but it's such a great groove that they get in every I guess style that they play, right? Um, it's just amazing. So whether it's a Latin thing, if we're doing Landlady, right, or we're doing Cavern, or we're doing Susie Greenberg, or whatever, there's no guessing. You just lock right in.
I love that. And this was the first time you played Yomar with them?
Uh, I think so.
That's so
I,
cool.
I
This
I
version,
I think so. I think so. I don't remember maybe playing it on the Horn Tour if it was around then, but my memory's a little foggy with some of the songs.
that seems
But
fair.
but when you contacted me and said, "Hey, we want to talk about the show," a really great friend of mine, Marty Harris, had sent me. He found it somewhere online because I looked for it, um, and he had sent me the concert. So it was really neat to relive that.
Yeah. Have you listened to it in a while or ever?
You know what? I probably had a tape of it
Mm-hmm.
soon after, because somehow someone would mail me the tape, right? So I would have that and, play it, and, you critique yourself, and, you never know what's going to come next. And, if I knew I'd be sitting here talking with you folks about this, maybe I would have, saved my tape or something.
That's really, that's cool. That's cool
Yeah.
to hear. And you're right. That was the first time Yamar was played. I was not played at all on that Giant Country Horns tour,
No.
which is interesting because it would have been a good one but you guys had plenty.
Yeah, we had a bunch of tunes. Yeah.
And Jason on YouTube, I think he's talking about the '91 tour, but I guess any of the shows you set in, he just asked, how closely did the distributed set list live up to actuals? Did they always stick to the set list on paper, or did they improvise the set list at all, or was it pretty strict to what was written down?
I think in the '91 tour is it was very close to what Trey wrote out for us, just because we had music that we had to, go through. And you're playing, if we go from Golgi Apparatus to, Split Open and Melt or Lawn Boy or whatever. So we would have the music handy, not to say the jams, those were complete. We don't know what's coming next, right? So the tune would just take on a mind of its own, right? Like I think that's the first time we played Gumbo. I don't even think there was a fade out Dixieland thing on that. It just happened, and Trey looks at us and kind of does this, keep going. And then the band, they dropped out, and we just started this Dixieland thing because we just, it's just the right thing to do, I suppose, because it's Gumbo. So those kind of things just stretched out in our own little jam way, I guess, with horns. But every show I thought was a little bit different from the other one that a previous show that we had played. So, but the long answer to a short question is it was pretty strict with regard to the '91 tour as far as what we're going to play top to bottom.
And I have another question just for this show in New Orleans. I mean, I know New Orleans is so collaborative, and there's always collaborations with other musicians. Was this a common thing at the time for you? Like, were you going out to just sit in with musicians either on jam nights or getting invited to come out and play with lots of different people? Like, how did that work back in the '90s?
Well, actually, I was in the Navy band at the time, and we were working a lot. I was in a kind of a brass band, which is one of the units that I played in. I suppose we did ceremonies, we did parades, but I was in a really good kind of brass band, and we did a lot of concerts for the Navy, out in public concerts. That we did all the Mardi Gras parades, I think all in all, I might have played like 60 Mardi Gras parades in my 3 years that I was there. It was amazing. But so I was busy, really busy with the Navy band stuff. So I did start working with some Latin bands where I was like the only guy that couldn't speak Spanish there. And those gigs would start at like 11 o'clock and then we played till 3, so that was kind of, once I got in, I got in the scene with those guys and they called me back, that was kind of my outlet other than the stuff I was doing with the Navy. So, but when Fish comes to town, you drop everything, right? And just the hang, because I used to hang with them a lot when they were in town, and we would just hang together, and it wasn't you didn't have to go through 5 security guards to get backstage, right? So there was a couple, but it was just more of a family, and obviously the opportunity to be invited to play. I mean, I certainly knew then how special that would be for me. So I was, very musically satisfied in New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, what a place to play music. It seems like it'd be incredible. Yeah. I know this version of Yamar, it's like, I feel like it's like a Sunday morning at Cafe du Monde. You're like eating beignets and drinking your chicory coffee, and like you're hearing this like great band walk by playing Yamar. I mean, it's like that's just how I was imagining it. It sounds so New Orleans. It sounds great with the horns. I love it.
Amazing. This is amazing. Thanks, Carl, for sharing your thoughts on this stuff. So we talked about Hampton '98 a couple of years ago, And I know that you've talked to Tom about that. There were some fun conversations about that. But what are besides the 91 tour, are there other sit-ins with the band that particularly stick out to you over the years?
I would have to say, everyone was special, not to sound politically correct, but every one of them is incredible. But I get say the last time, I suppose the last time I played with them, which was in 2012, down in Virginia. That was really cool because at the time I would go to shows and, there wasn't really expectation to play, but it was always like, you know, always bring your horn. That was the whole thing. So, but I think that time Paige is like, when we talked on the phone, he's like, yeah, because it was a different, this is after they broke up and they got back together, right? So things had changed drastically backstage with regard to like who was backstage. It was all business, right? Which I mean, it was
Yeah.
great. It was great. It wasn't mayhem, like not to say it was mayhem before, but there was a lot of folks backstage back in the day.
Yeah.
So when Paige said, Richard, their tour manager, just talk to Richard, he'll take care of you. So Richard's like, okay, do this, do this. And when I parked my truck backstage, like it was my truck and all those tractor trailers that are backstage. There was no other vehicle. So I'm like, wow. So anyway, and Paige said, make sure you bring your horn this time. So I was pretty excited because at that point I knew, they had talked about it and they wanted to get me up there. So what I didn't know was what we were going to play. So before the show, we're hanging out with the guys in the band in one of the practice rooms, and Trey's like, hey, do you know Party Time? I didn't know it that well. I heard it, and he's like, well, so he grabbed his guitar, but Fishman's his children were really small, maybe an infant, and they were sleeping. So I had to put a mute in, and Paige went to the practice room piano, and Trey had his guitar unplugged, and we went through the song. He's like, okay, and you play this lick, and you play this lick, and then you good? I'm like, okay, I'm good. So that's how it all, that's all how it began. And then, Trey was, we basically had a lot of years had gone by since I had seen them, and so he just started asking me what's going on in my life, and I told him what I was doing, and he just came up with this really kind of a unique intro. If you listen to that 6/19/12, I think is the date of it, what he said. So anyway, it kind of sparked some other things that happened after that because it was quite a unique introduction. But anyway, just a chance to play with them. Plus it came out, it had a really kind of a high quality video to it. So that's on YouTube. So it's really nice to reflect on that. And knowing that in itself was no rehearsal, just a lot of spontaneity and an opportunity to play with them. So that was probably the one because it's so close to in my memory, right? So
Yeah.
it was it was really
That's
awesome.
amazing. It's amazing.
That summer too, they just seemed like they were having a lot of fun that summer too. Like they had those running jokes about tucking, and they were just being really silly and playful on stage that summer. And it makes sense that they wanted to bring you on. And I think that's really cool. I love hearing that story.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, it's really cool, and I mean, hopefully that happens again soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some other requests for that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason's saying, I hope you'll be at MSG this year.
I'll have my horn, right? I always got my horn with me.
It's always good. Travel with your horn. Thanks, Carl, for revisiting this and sharing all your memories with us.
Well, you guys are awesome. And Megan and RJ, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This is so generous of you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Carl. And we hope to see you soon. And do you want to tell everybody where they can hear you playing music?
Yes, thank you. I play with a great band called Roomful of Blues. They've been kind of a Rhode Island staple, national blues act that they've been together for over 50 years. Some different personnel, but an incredible band. I think they've had 5 Grammy nominations, and I play kind of not exclusively, but I play a lot with them. And we do travel all over the country. we certainly did pre-COVID. Went out to the Chicago Blues Festival. We played Montreal, and we do a lot of stuff in the Northeast. But we actually are. This is live, right? What we're doing right now? Oh, okay.
Yes.
So yeah, we're playing this weekend. We're playing Friday night, the 14th at the Stadium Theater in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And then Saturday night we're at Daryl's house. If you remember Daryl Hall?
Yeah.
Hall and Oates. Yeah. So it's a really awesome venue in Pauling, New York. We're playing there Saturday night. And we've also got a gig on the North Shore on Sunday. So it's really cool. We're playing 3 in a row, and the guys in the band are awesome. And we have a really nice fan base. Most of everybody that comes out to see the band has been fans for years. So if you get a chance, check out Room Full of Blues. And our latest album is called In a Room Full of Blues, which was released on the day that COVID hit, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it sat, it sat on top of the charts for international blues for like months. It was either Robert Cray or us on top. So it was really cool. Yeah, during COVID, it was nice to be recognized, by folks out there. So if you get a chance, stream, go out there, buy the album, or go stream it, or come out and check out a show.
That's fantastic. We'll link to that in the show notes for people to check out for the upcoming shows. And thanks for mentioning that, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl. And hopefully we'll see you out there with your trumpet on stage. We'd love that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks so much, Carl.
Nice to see you again.
Take care, folks. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
I love this song.
That was so great. And I think your kids liked it too.
Yeah, they are. It's getting to the point where they're not quiet anymore, but they were for a while. So
they did amazing.
It was really fun. Megan, should I tell people about Sunset Lake CBD before we wrap up?
Yeah, I can tell them if you want, since you've
Go
got
for
some little
it.
friends. Yeah. Sunset Lake's line of smokable hemp products are for the old deadhead or the young fish fan or the Carl Gerhard fan searching for a mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis, but there's no paranoid and anxious side effects. They've got 9 different strains from this year's harvest, and there's something for everyone. You've got your Hawaiian haze, you've got your cherry abacus, and all the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake's CBD farmers. And even better, their farm-to-table approach. It's amazing because it gives you really great pricing on premium CBD because they're shipping it directly from their farm to your door, and they're going to ship quickly and really inexpensively. So check them out. I love Sunset Lake. I've gotten really into CBD. It helps me sleep. It helps me relax. It's just a nice thing to take on like a Sunday afternoon when you want to relax a little bit, but you still have some things to get done with your family or with your friends. So check them out at sunsetlakecbd.com, and you can use the coupon code HFPOD, and you're going to get 20% off your whole purchase. So check them out today.
Thank you, Megan, for doing that. And we should say we're going to be back on Monday, and on Monday we're going to do something a little bit different, and I hope it's okay with everybody. I think it will be, because we kind of do what we want, but we do what's good for you all too. And we think that it would be good to go back to last fall and talk about the fall 2021 tour. I think in retrospect, it's one of the best tours that we've seen in years. So we're going to spend a few episodes looking at some of the fall 2021 shows with guests who were there. And on Monday, we're going to talk about the 10/16/21 show from San Francisco, which is Brian and I were there together. It was just, man, so fun. And we're going to look at San Francisco, Eugene, Chula Vista, the Forum, and we're going to talk about fall 2021. So, listen back to those, and we'll see you guys there next week.
Yeah, do your homework. And these shows, I'm so excited to go back to these. I feel like when they were happening, I was having so much FOMO because I couldn't see any of them. And so I was listening and kind of like crying myself to sleep. But I'm excited to get to revisit them on HF Pod and talk to everybody who was there. It's going to be really fun.
And I guess before we wrap up, we should tell you about our partners at Fans for Racial Equity. They're seeking to build an anti-racist live music scene and promote liberation through racial equity in the world at large by activating the collective power of our community. You can check them out at shows. They go to all the shows. You can check them out on the internet at fansforracialequity.org, fans with a PH, of course. They have education, outreach, community partnership programs, and they're really great. And we're happy to be helping spread the word for them. I think that's it, Megan. Anything else we need to say before we go?
I don't think so. Thanks, RJ. This is a lot of fun.
It was fun. We'll see you all on Monday.
Yep. See you then.